Hooray, here we are. It has been a while. When was the last time we had this class? I can't remember. But here we are. So let's start up. Let's say our bracha. Our bracha that starts us off la'asok b'divrei Torah, to engage in Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We are not what you see right there. I think we said we're at Ecclesiastes 6:9. Is that right? That seems further than we were, but no, this actually looks familiar.
7:1.
Yeah, this looks familiar. Okay, well, we have a discrepancy.
I take that back. That's my old note.
Yeah, because this one, Ki Yesh Devarim Harbeh Marbim Havel, I remember this one. Talking too much is pointless. I remember that. So I'm sorry, Sylvia, where did you say we are? Very beginning of 7?
Yeah, 7:1.
Oh, this is one of the greatest passages from Ecclesiastes there is. Look at the way this verse is written. I'm going to enlarge it. It's a beautiful statement, but it's more than that because it's also written in what we call a chiastic order. So in Hebrew, it says, Tov Shem Mishem and Tov V'yom Hamavet Miyom Hivaldo Tov Shem Mishemen Tov. Let's see if I can do this with letters. There's a way to do this. Yeah. So O actually here, let me O Oh, notice it's Tov, Shem, Mishemen, Tov. So on part one of this, what you see just in terms of grammatical shape is the syllables go in an order O, O. But also Tov, Shem, Mishemen, Tov. So these words are connected, and Shem and Shemin. Isn't that amazing? Whoever the writer of this was, we can say it's Solomon. We can say it's Deborah Barrett. We could say it's Pamela. We could say it's Black Velvet, my cat. Whoever it was very thoughtful in writing this out.
We're just learning about chiastic Hebrew in my Hebrew class right now.
Really? What's the example that's being used in your Hebrew class?
There's many. So, there's exercises and stuff like that. I could pull up the book.
In our other class,
yeah,
I'd be interested in what they're doing. But in our other class, our class on Birkat Hamazon, we have a chiastic expression from Psalm 137? No, Psalm 126. The introduction, Shir HaMalot, has a line that says, Hazorim bedima berina yitzoru. O-E-E-O.
And there's also quite a few in the Proverbs.
It makes sense, right? Because these are things, mnemonics to remember. These are sayings. Tov Shem Mishem and Tov too is a very pithy statement, and it makes sense.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Before you get lost in the chiastic glory, would you please explain what Mishemen means?
Sure. Well, I do want to get into the explanation. I just want to give one more example, and then I promise we'll look at the pasuk itself. The last one I want to mention is the Tower of Babel. This is a very important example of chiastic order. Important enough that doctoral dissertations have been written about it. The narrative, not the words, although the words too, Have nivne livena is a phrase that's in there. You have a lot of lamids and nuns. It's just very interesting. I learned from Dr. Eskenazi that there's a narrative aspect of symmetry from the beginning to the end of the story of the Tower of Babel. I think the thinker on that was a guy named Brueggemann, Walter Brueggemann, who is a Christian scholar, but I could be wrong about that. That was one of those classes from grad school that I'll never forget, just because it was so like, oh my God, that's a, it was one of those light bulb moments. Okay, I will do exactly what you said. We will talk about what the text. I guess I don't have to erase this just yet. Let me just, okay. So, good is a name. Me, Shemen Tov. Shemen is fat, or in this case, oil. So Shemen means oil, and name means, or Shem means name. There's no to my knowledge, grammatical link between Shem and Shemen. They just happen to be this way. I think the root for Shem might be Shin Mem Mem, not Shin Mem Nun. That would be very strange. So, but you have nevertheless, look at the way this is. It's Shin Mem. Here, I'll do Shin. Let's put dots in all the shins in red, and then let's put dots for the mems in the other space. Look at that. A, B, B, A, B. Within the span of 5 letters, you have only 2 letters that are being used. So it's very interesting. So just to help you understand this mem in front, literally the word, the mem means from, but it often can mean in a comparison than, T-H-A-N. A name, a better is a name, or more good is a name than good oil. Usually translated as fine oil. In this case, it says fragrant oil. So, and you know what I should do is, I should put it on this one. Okay. So we'll see the translations. A good name, everyone will say Tov Shem, a good name, or better a name. A good name is better than fragrant oil, better than precious oil, better than good oil. Tov is the word that we're comparing to. So you can see how in English, translation is going to be impacting the understanding, but not that much. Good and better in Hebrew are very much connected. In our other class, we also talked about how the word Tov is used to describe all 4 matriarchs in Birkat Hamazon. Heitiv, Tovat, Tov, Tov, which is a modern interpretation and sort of insertion into Birkat Hamazon. It's a word that's found across the board. But in any case, better, good is a name than good oil. That would be sort of the literal translation. Obviously, we would say good is a name than good oil might mean something like better is a name than fine oil. Now, let's just interpret that for a second. What does it mean? Having a good name is of preferable value than having the finest of oils. Let's not forget, in a very old society, oil was not easy to come by. It was a luxury. That's why we have, and oil might be connected to a perfume, right? There's ways in which what we're talking about here is having a good name is better than material possession. That to me is the pshat of this, the simple meaning. And let's look at the second half. And V'yom hamavet miyom hivaldo. better again, and maybe I can maybe I should do one more coloring. Let's see. How about green? Better is a name than fine oil, and the another comparison is being made. So it's better is the day of one's death than the day of one's birth.
It's interesting because I'm looking at the Art Scroll Tanakh, the Stone Edition, and it's pointing out that because it brings up death here, it's the first half is referring to if when you die, if you have a good name, it's better for you than having a fragrant oil that's going to make you smell good as you leave.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's not the exact words, but that's what it says.
Almost like a perfumed oil, Pamela?
Yeah, it's like a perfumed oil.
Look at this translation.
Okay.
I've never seen this one.
A fine reputation will preserve a deceased person's memory more effectively than precious oil will preserve his body.
Oh, embalming oil.
That's a lot of interpretation. Let's see. My guess is that it's built on Rashi or some other commentator because the idea of it being embalming oil sounds Rashi-esque. But I have not heard that. So let's see what he says. Better a good name than precious oil. A fine reputation for a person is better than precious oil. And oh yes, the crown of a good name. We use that all the time as an idea. And we talked about it a couple of years ago. And on the day of his death, then that reputation is better than it was on the day he was born. For this reason, a good name is compared to oil in preference to other liquids. For if you put water into oil, it rises and floats and is distinguishable. But other liquids, if you put water into them, it becomes absorbed. Well, that's interesting, Rashi.
Mm.
And here's another idea that he has. Precious oil runs down, as it is stated, as the precious oil on the head runs down upon the beard, which sounds to me like anointment.
Mm-hmm.
Psalm 133. But a good name rises to the top, as it is stated, and I will make your name great. And you shall be a blessing. Right? Lechi lach. It's from the same passage. And I shall make your name great in that wonderful song, that Debbie Freeman song. So their name, there's the word. I will make your name great is better. I think you get it. Precious oil is temporary, but a fine reputation is forever. As it is stated, may his name, let's see, what is this?
That is not true.
Well,
A precious name is not forever. It's the easiest thing to lose.
Well, I'm putting something in the chat from Shakespeare for you guys.
okay.
Yeah.
Not to argue with the text for the sake of it, but it seems
Oh,
like
Iago, Otello.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Deborah.
no. I don't need to argue that point anymore. You guys get it.
I mean, I think it's very easy for a good name to be soured. I mean, all of our heroes at some point are soured. In fact, that's a very political conversation about founders and their limitations, civil rights leaders and their limitations. It's a standard conversation. Anyway,
Oh, that's a beautiful quote, Sylvia.
yeah, thank you for that. How did you get that oh, I guess you probably just Googled it.
Yes, I do the first line, and there's websites that.
I used to have a T-shirt that said Otello's problem was his Iago. Okay. Precious
I
oil.
like that you use the operatic name instead of Othello. You say Otello.
Otello. Iago. It's Otello. Even though
Desdemona.
Shakespeare was, Anyway, precious oil best flows from the flask to the palace and no further, but a fine reputation spreads throughout the world. Let's see where that comes from. Oh, that's just one of these sources that they use a lot. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon, said that we find that those who had good oil entered the place of life and emerged burnt up. These are Nadav and Avihu, who were anointed with the anointing oil. Ah, so not all oil, not even good oil is that great. And we find those who possessed a fine reputation who'd entered a place of death and emerged alive. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah from the book of Daniel, who emerged unscathed from the fiery furnace because they had a good name. So this is one of those proof texts. I wonder what the source is. Everybody understand that? Yes, Deborah.
One of the things I'm mindful of is the role that oil played in those days compared to its role now. You know, commonly we use oil for far fewer purposes than they would have. They used oil for everything from lighting to perfumes. You know, and I have some oil from Israel, and the quality is just so much better than anything else we get. So the preciousness of oil back then was no small thing.
I agree. Yeah. Well, look at the obsession with extra virgin olive oil. So much so that you don't need a hechsher on Pesach for it, uh, because it's that pure. I guess it's probably filtered enough times. And then look at this last Rashi, and the day of his death is greater than the day of birth. When Miriam was born, no one knew who she was, what she was. But when she died, the well ceased to exist, and similarly with Aaron with the pillar of cloud, and Moshe with the manna.
I have a question. Some Israelis have the last name of Shem Tov.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
In
and the
fact, one
Baal
of the
Shem Tov.
hostages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the Baal Shem Tov, of course.
Hmm.
I don't know
Well,
if that was just an observation to name yourself, to name yourself good name.
one of my favorite flutists or flautists is Shem Tov Levi, who was in a group called Sheshet in the 70s and continues to make amazing music. He's one of the great progressive Israeli rock stars, I guess you could say. Yeah, Shem Tov, Shem Tov. There's a couple of Shem Tovs out there. So. All right, are we ready to move on? I mean, I think this is one of those great pericopes of learning. You get something out of it, and I think we can move on now. Let me clear all drawings. Okay. Tov lalechet el beit ha'evel, milechet el beit mishteh, ba'asher hu sof kol hadam, v'achayiten el libo. So here's another, let me actually lower this a little bit and go back to this. The key here is in Hebrew is this mem, which we have here as well. And we have also tov and tov. And actually, while we're at it, why don't we do the next line? Tov ka'as mischok. Kivroa panim yitav lev. So with all of these, you have something is more something than something else. And the first one is a name is more good than fine oil. In this one, more good or better is it lalechet el beit evel. It is better to go to a house of mourning, right? A mourner's house, mileket el beit mishteh, than to go to the house of revelry or drinking or feasting. Ba'asher hu sof kol hadam, because that is the end of every human being. V'achai yiten el libo. And the living one should give it to his heart. You should take this seriously. So instead of spending your whole life, if you're, like my daughter Zimra, she's now at a school with a sorority system. Maybe instead of spending a lot of time going to the sorority parties, and she's not, to my knowledge, doing that. I don't want it to be seen that way. But instead of engaging in total revelry and maybe wasting energy and time, perhaps she should do something that is substantive and as deep as going to the house of mourning.
How about the house of study?
It's not mentioned here, is it?
No, no, I'm just talking about your daughter. Rather than the house of mourning, she could go to the house of study.
And there are service sororities that do help people.
Oh
I'm just
yeah.
saying.
I'm not trying to be mean to
And
but
the more you object, the quicker she'll flee to it. I'll tell you that
yes,
right
that's
now.
true. And also we've read in other parts of this very book that you're supposed to enjoy life.
Yeah.
So there's that too. I think it's a balance thing.
But this statement is really true because when we go to a Shiva house, it's something so deep uh, that the house of revelry is so surface. It just doesn't go very far into the psyche. But when you go into a house of mourning, yeah, that's a very deep experience, and it's really very much taught when it says take it to heart or giving your heart, but it really does penetrate a lot of stuff when you go to somebody's house.
And it's a mitzvah, although it's also a
Yes, it
mitzvah
is.
to rejoice with the bride and groom.
Yes, although it's not mishteh, it's not beit mishteh. When you're rejoicing with bride and groom, it's literally accompanying bride and groom, being present. Um, and also buying the bride a dress and making everyone feel happy.
And
It's
a
less about
bris,
your joy and more about their joy. It's supposed to be the most magical day, so we do that. That's sort of the mitzvah there. Okay, which reminds me of last night, but I won't go into the tangent talking about the Bal Tashchit and wanton destruction and why we don't kill trees. And anyway,
mm,
okay. Tov ka'as mischok. Better is anger than revelry or schok. It's the same word as tzchok, tzadi, with a tzadi like Yitzchak, then laughing and kind of, they have it as revelry here. Let's see if they say anything else. They don't. Sort of lighthearted and goofiness and maybe mischief is implied with schok. Playing games. A mischak is a game. So better is anger or vexation as they have it than like frivolity maybe is a better word. Kivaroa panim, though the face be sad, they have it here, yitav lev. The heart may be glad. Sad and glad, two of the four emotions for a 6-year-old. Though the face be sad, kivaroa panim yitav lev, the heart will be great, joyous. So isn't that interesting? Let's see how some of the other translations do this.
Wow.
I'm thinking it's going to be open to a lot. Vexation is better than revel. That's what you have. Vexation is better than laughter. I mentioned yitzchak and schak. It's the same idea. I don't know if there's really a difference, but it's a lightheartedness. For by the sadness of the countenance, the heart may be gladdened. Countenance is a fancy way of saying the face. By the
Um,
sadness of the face, the heart will be made better. Interesting.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
the Stone edition translate that not into it's grief. It's not vexation like you're mad.
That's interesting. Probably Rashi. We'll take a look at the Rashi
Okay.
afterwards. But ka'as means anger. The pshat, the simple meaning of ka'as is definitely anger. Koes alai, he's angry at me. Modern Hebrew, it's possible there's a meaning I don't know. So you had it as what? I'm sorry, one more time?
Grief.
Grief. Well, they have some translations here that call it sorrow, which is not that far from grief. And vexation is kind of the same as grief too, right? Isn't it like cursed or feeling lousy?
Vexation. That sounds like more like anger to me. But you know what? If that second word is grief, it would be the translation would be good grief, which was one of my dad's big expressions. Good grief.
What was that, Linus or
I
one of
don't know.
the characters on in Peanuts?
Peter Pickens, whose yard side is Tuesday, he used to say good grief all the time.
Good grief, Charlie Brown. I think that was
Right.
a book. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so we're learning in honor of Mr. Pickens.
That's right.
Sorrow is better than laughter, since the sad face may improve a good heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of the countenance the heart is made glad. Better vexation than levity. Now that sounds right. Better than is being, kind of upset about things than being frivolous about it. For through a grieved face, the heart is made better. Well, that's an interesting. By going through the emotions, this is a great one for psychologists that are trying to say you need to feel your feelings. And then there's Esperanto. I'm not going to try. Adif, ka'as mitzchok. Preferable is anger than laughing. Ki befanim zeufot halev nirga. Those are some of those words. I don't know zeif. Zeuf. Okay. All right. Thoughts about it? Do you agree? Disagree?
Well, the only thing is that we haven't come to the next one. I read ahead, but it seems like they've been talking a lot about death and mourning, and so it seems to me that rather than vexation, which would not be something that would normally occur during mourning, grief might be a better fit if it goes all together. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying because we haven't read it, but Beit Evel up here, Beit Evel down here, it's sandwiched in between with this statement about anger and levity or laughter. All right, well, let's look at 4. Lev chachamim beveit Evel, velev kesilim beveit simcha. Wow, the heart of the wise ones is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of joy, or as they have, merrymaking. That's kind of funny. The wise guys are grieving, and the fools are partying. That's just a statement. It's not giving a moral judgment. Well, it is, though, because they're calling people in the house of merrymaking or joy fools or idiots or something along those words. Look at this very different translation. The heart of the wise will reflect on the house of mourning. Their thoughts are focused on the day of death. A wise person is thinking about their passing. Machshavtam al yom hamita. So wise people's thoughts are on the day of their dying, which is kind of perfect in light of where we are in our holiday cycle. We're about to focus on this idea of teshuvah and that passage from Rabbi Eliezer who says, repent one day, shuv yom echad lifnei moto, before one's death, repent, do teshuvah. So that's the consciousness that seems to be in this. And let's not forget that in terms of our holiday cycle, we're reading Ecclesiastes during Sukkot, and Sukkot has in it Hoshana Rabbah, which is a day of judgment, just like our Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment, and Yom Kippur is the day in which the decree is sealed. On Hoshana Rabbah, we say that the waters are judged. And so there is a way in which life and death, even if it's the holiday of tremendous joy, is embedded in the reading of Ecclesiastes, which is always read on the Shabbat in the middle of Sukkot.
There's another way to look at this, Rabbi. With the heart of the wise in the house of the mourning, that might be saying that the wise, having wisdom, is at the house of mourning to not just to look at their own death or to perceive that, but also for giving comfort to the grieving. And that's a wisdom type thing, is to be able to comfort others.
That's right. That's right.
Sounds good. Yes, Sylvia.
So, I had an interesting talk. I don't know if you know Leslie Clipstein. She's a chaplain at Providence. She's, anyway, we were talking about this thing about how we're supposed to be happy with everything the way it is, be happy with what you have, everything's great, tra la la. Well, and we were talking about how you're not going to make changes if you're thinking that way. And somehow this is telling me, the wise, they look around and they say something's wrong, let's fix it. Well, the other side of it is everything's great, so I'm not going to make change in my life, in my psyche, in the world around me, in my friendships, in my community. I'm just going to accept things as they are. And that was like a really good, somehow we were talking about the Parsha a couple of weeks ago. She did a great drash. So I'm thinking that could be a little bit what they're talking about here.
Well, I'm not sure I enjoy this translation, because as I look a little closer at it, I realize they're not commenting very much in this translation on the word lev, which is central to the idea. It doesn't say that wise people are in a house of mourning and that fools are in a house of frivolity or merrymaking. It says the heart of the wise are in a house of mourning, and the heart of the fool is in the house of joy. Meaning, what is the lev, the heart? The heart is the place in the body where thought happens. You have to understand that to the rabbis and really historically, heart is not an emotional center, it's a thought center. So that's why Rashi says machshavatam, their thoughts are on the of the day of death. And so I think that's why I think they say are drawn to a house of mourning. Wise men are drawn to it.
Yeah, and excuse me. Deborah's got her hand up.
Yes, go ahead, Deborah, and then Pamela after that.
I'm getting so much out of the discussion. I think that, another way that I find it helpful to think about all of this is in terms of what creates a more lasting impact. So I'm looking also at the pattern in the 4 verses in front of us. When we comfort people who are mourning, when we struggle with ideas as we do when we are vexed, we create a lasting impact that will stay for a long time with both us and the person who we are comforting, or with in terms of whatever problem we are solving. But when we experience joy, it's very much in the moment. It's, the ability to extend joy from the present moment into the future is not that easy.
No.
It's very temporal. And so another way in which I think about this reference to better than is what leaves a more lasting impact.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think you bring up some important points.
Um, I was just noticing that in verse 2, the house of merriment is Beit Mishte.
Correct.
And,
Yes. And
and
here
this
it's
is,
different.
but to me, Simcha is almost a holy word to me. So I take it it's a very strange thing that they call it Simcha. Uh, the house of joy has a different connotation to me than merrymaking. What do you guys think?
I thought simcha was just joy.
Yeah.
Right,
But
because
Mishte
Simca is within you, while merrymaking is trying to create something that might not necessarily, I mean, let's have a party as opposed to I'm feeling joy.
what about Mishte? What does that translate as?
I mean, they translate here as feasting. That's the way it's used in the book of Esther, where we hear about these mishte gadol, these big parties,
Mhm.
right? And in the midst of that word, of course, shin taf hey is the root of drinking, so it implies a place of intoxication, perhaps
Mhm.
not just a
Like
place of,
carousing.
but a bar. Yeah, it's definitely lighthearted, to life, l'chaim, right?
Right. It would change it though if rather than in you said the fools to a house of joy, that would have a different um connotation to me than the house of merriment. House of merriment, merrymaking sounds just, frivolous. But the house of joy, Beit Simcha, yeah, our friend of Sylvia and I calls her house Beit Simcha. So,
There's also in New York City, Beit Simchat Torah. There's a synagogue called the House of the Joy of Torah, which of
mhm.
course is also Simchat Torah. But here's the translations just so we can compare how they look at Simcha. Merrymaking, the House of Mirth is the 1917 JPS. The House of Feasting, which is very interesting because that then parallels up here the Beit Mishteh, which they call a house of feasting. The house of, um, and the heart of the fool, oops, is at a party. Well, there you have it. They're
Mhm.
basically saying they're one and the same.
Hmm.
House of mirth in the Quran, house of feasting, back to that. And then the revised JPS goes with merrymaking. Well, look at this. How about Dr. Shimon Bernfeld? Haus der Freude.
A couple of weeks ago, Wynn did her drosh on how many times the word rejoice. I don't know if anybody else was there except for me. Um,
No, Irvin and I were leaving service with her. Remember, Sylvia?
yes, you were. Oh my gosh. I always think of Zoom. Yes, yes. So you remember what she counted all those times that about rejoicing. That was it was good. And then the next day, my rabbi here did it on the same topic, but totally different. It's so amazing. But that was the word simcha. It's not drinking, it's rejoice. It's a feeling.
Hmm.
Of course, you were what I'm
But
thinking.
with all those translations, it seems like my desire to be the plain meaning is not shared by a lot of other uh, wise men. So,
Well, again, I think it's about where your brain is. I mean, look at our tradition says at weddings you think about the destruction of the temple. Like
mhm.
the whole focus on moving away from depression and sadness and grief might be a 20th century, 21st century construct based
Hmm.
on some level. I mean, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that, and we know that a century ago or a century and a half ago, people had to sit there frozen for picture taking, the daguerreotype, and no one smiles. So, our culture changes. So, it may be that
It,
that's part of this.
it is required. It is it's a commandment to be joyful, though. There's a bunch of them there, just like what Sylvia was talking about, though. Um, I mean, gosh. And then just as far as talking about Simcha, just to let you know, that is my name. My Hebrew name is Baruch Simcha. So I have to throw that in too.
Well, so that's an interesting question. Is the mitzvah to be joyous, or is
Mm.
it to rejoice, which is different, right? V'samachta b'chagecha, you shall rejoice in your holiday. I'm sure that came up in the service last week. It's not
Yes.
that you should be in but there is a phrase in there, v'hayita ach sameach, and you shall be only joyous. But it's in the context of a holiday, a specific holiday. It's not perpetual sense of joyousness. I don't think that the tradition would defend that, because then how do you deal with Tisha B'Av, for instance? You're
Well,
not all supposed to be joyous on Tisha B'Av.
I don't think it's saying that you got to be joyous all the time,
Right.
but that you need to be joyous, even if you're not feeling it, to put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? I don't know what the word is in Hebrew, but in this translation, it says wise men are drawn.
Yes.
So maybe that's the whole point.
The
Wise
drawn
men
is the
are,
lev. That they're commenting on lev,
okay.
because lev means heart, or as you can see, inclination, conscience. One's thought processes, thinking, reflection should be on the house of mourning. Well, we don't have to like everything we read. I know that if Avital was here, she'd be like, come on, what a bummer.
We are
Just
commanded,
that's just his opinion.
yeah. We are commanded to be joyful on some days, like on Shabbat.
Oh yeah.
Can you, I don't mean to be difficult. I'd like a defense for that. I'd like to know how that's true.
That we're commanded to be joyful on Shabbat.
Yeah. I'm not sure that that's accurate. I mean, again,
Yeah, correct it if it's wrong. I'm not able to think straight right
I
now.
would actually love to know if that were true. But I
Bill,
know that
yeah.
in general, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say we need to guard it and we need to observe it, but I think that the rabbis tell us that we need to have oneg Shabbat, right? It's not a
That's
direct
right.
commandment.
Okay, that's actually a pretty good argument. Very good, Pamela. Oneg Shabbat. It is a adornment of the holiday, right? That's what it's a delight of the Sabbath. It's a different word than simcha, but I think it does generate a sense of simcha, of joy.
Well, and I hear that over and over again what Deborah was saying, and I do know in Heschel's book, The Sabbath, if you read the introduction written by his daughter about what it was like to spend Shabbos with her father, and this was during Vietnam and all the civil rights, and all these things were going up that he was participating in, very open, not one word on Shabbos about anything having to do with politics. That's what you do. You are focusing on exactly what Pamela was saying, observing and my brain is not
Remembering.
working.
Make the Sabbath
Remembering,
a delight.
yes.
But what about
Yes.
making the Sabbath a delight? Is
Yeah,
that not
because sitting
something?
around yelling at each other at a table, or even in shul, people yelling at each other, which is what I grew up with, it's not delightful.
Well, okay, so since you said the words in a way that I could hear it, It's Yismechu. Yismechu b'malchutcha. You shall rejoice in your malchutcha. I don't know. Yismechu b'malachutcha. In your endeavors. Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg. The guardians of the Sabbath and the callers of it as a delight. But I wanted to bring you to also, of course, one of the greats, the great grandson of the Best of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who says, Mitzvah gedola lihiyot besimcha. Now, he's not a halachic authority when he says this, but he said it is a great mitzvah to be in a state of joy always. Litgaber laharchik atzavut. So to conquer or to be in control of, or like to master, to have strength over, and to distance from sadness, the hamara shechora, and the dark bitterness with all of one's strength. It's funny, this translation is pretty terrible. But it's got the right spirit. I mean, it's not a literal translation. It is a great metaphorical translation to make every effort to determinedly keep depression and gloom at bay.
But the Baal Shem Tov was at odds with the traditional rabbis about their performance, their attitude on Shabbat. I mean, the Baal Shem Tov really got everybody up on their feet and dancing, and the traditional rabbis thought it was a disgrace how they were acting. So, it's just interpretation, isn't it?
I suppose so. And look, the Nachman Ratzlav goes on. All the illnesses that afflict people are due only to flawed joy. Don't think that's true, but that's okay. Okay, let's go back. Were you going to say something, Sylvia?
Oh, just that it's not even just traditional rabbis, because growing up at Temple Beth Israel in San Diego, Shlomo Carlebach came to our very stuffy old school Reform synagogue, and as my mother would put it, the old stuffy, they plotzed, because Carlebach and his people were dancing up and down the aisles and singing and clapping, and it was like, no, we need to sit quietly. And it was really an amazing confrontation. So there is this thing among us of joy and dancing, and and then let's just study and put our heads down and really read and
It was like that at my the synagogue where I had my conversion in Calgary. They were more of German descent, and so there was real gravitas to Shabbat. And then what was the name of the renewal rabbi, the man who died? He was very esteemed.
Zalman Schachter
came to the synagogue for our rededication after we renovated the temple, and he had us all holding our hands and dancing around the inside of the temple for the Song of Miriam. What is it? That part of the service.
Debbie Friedman. Oh.
Sorry, I can't think, but if you can remember it.
For Simchat Torah?
No. It was
the Song of the Sea?
The Song of the Sea.
Oh.
That part of that liturgy, that's the Song of the Sea. I just can't think. What was it?
Yeah, Shirat Hayam.
And it was so beautiful to have him transform our Shabbat, because we were such a quiet, serious congregation. I will never forget that. And for the first time, members of the congregation were given aliyot, not just the visitors. Everything about it was just a little more special.
Well, folks, I think if we are going to keep going, we're going to need to do 2 verses, but I'm going to have to skedaddle at the end. So I think I'm going to ask permission for us to draw it to a close, and we'll start up again with verse 5 next week.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just read one thing here. I was flipping through the Bible here, the Deuteronomy here last week. This is in regards to you shall hold a festival for the Lord your God 7 days in the place that the Lord will choose. For the Lord your God will bless all your crops and all your undertakings, and you shall have nothing but joy.
Right. That's the V'hayita Ach Sameach at the end of last week's portion.
Mhm.
Parshat Re'eh goes back to looking at all the festivals and says expressly.
Yeah.
That's how we have that song. There's two verses that are brought together, and we sing it every year for Sukkot. We sing V'samachta b'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. That's the second half. V'samachta b'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. We'll sing it again this year, God willing. Thank you for that, Irvin.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll upload
Great
this and
class.
all will be well. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos.
And
Good
Shavua
Shabbos.
Tov.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Toodaloo.